Hello, and welcome to Scratch Paper, a writing-related podcast. My name is Alicia De Los Reyes, and this is episode 2. Welcome back. If you listened to the first episode, I am so excited to have you here for the second episode. And if this is your first time listening, congratulations. Hopefully you're enjoying it. I'm really glad that you're here. So once again, this is my third take. I hope to get a little bit faster at recording these in the future, but so let's get started. To recap, how this podcast works is each week I plan to give you a quick update on what I'm writing and what I'm reading in hopes that you'll get some inspiration and hopefully some good book recommendations. And then I'll give a little writing lesson. And this week's writing lesson is about tackling big projects. It's kind of a little pep talk for if you're feeling intimidated or daunted by the project that you're working on. So first, let me give you a writing update. So last week, I mentioned 2 ideas for how to force yourself to sit down and write, or in my case, sit down and revise, because I've been trying to revise my novel called Finding Lucy. And this novel I've been working on forever, and I'm really tired of working on it, but I need to revise it. And so I said that what I was going to do is give myself an incentive. If I wrote 20 minutes on my fun novel, which is knitting and wool related, and I still love it, it's still wonderful, and I'm sure it's still a reason, just a way to procrastinate. But so if I got to write 20 minutes on that novel, then I would have to revise for 20 minutes on my novel Finding Lucy. So I'm happy to report that I did revise. Yay! I did it. But the reason that I revised is not because I had already written the fun stuff, because really there was nothing stopping me from going back and writing more fun stuff, but it was because I wanted to record another podcast, and I was really embarrassed to say that I had failed at revising for a mere 20 minutes, because it's really not that long. Though it is a long time if you are busy and have a baby, and I understand. So if you didn't get your own writing goal last week, if you didn't achieve it, that's fine. I totally understand. I have not achieved my writing goals for many, many weeks now, and that is just fine. You're not always supposed to achieve them. But if you did, or if you want some encouragement for achieving them next week, may I recommend telling a bunch of people that you're going to do it and then making them ask you about it or something like that, because then maybe you'll be embarrassed enough to just force yourself to sit down and do it before you see them again. A quick reminder, the other recommendation I had for just forcing yourself to write is from Ann Patchett, and she just says to sit at a desk or on your couch and just sit there for 30 minutes and see what happens, and see if you don't write out of boredom. Don't let yourself do anything besides possibly write. Okay, so that is my writing update. Reading, I happen to be reading an Ann Patchett novel called Bel Canto that I picked up in my local little free library. I've gotten some really good books from the local little free library. If you have one around you, I highly recommend you put your old books in it and get some new ones out, because it's really fun. My favorite book that I ever picked up from a little free library is called The Swan Thieves by, her last name is Kostova. I'll have to look it up. It's really an amazing historical fiction novel, and I love it. I am also, the thing that struck me most about it, especially while I was reading, is I think it's about 1,200 pages. It's really, really long, and so few books are that long. But while I was reading, I did not notice that it was long, if that makes sense. It just felt like that was the natural length for that book. So it really kind of made me think, oh, maybe all books don't have to be 250 pages. Maybe that's not a thing that we have to follow. Anyway, it was really interesting, and it's just an amazing book. I love reading it. Okay, so that was my reading update, and now on to today's lesson. So like I said before, it's a bit of a pep talk. If you're feeling intimidated by a big project, what made me think of this particular few words of encouragement is that when I was revising, I noticed if you open up Word at the bottom, it'll tell you what page you are on. And it said I was on page 8 of 202. And I know that I'm not even actually on page 8 because I skipped revising the prologue. So I'm going to have to go back and revise that later. So I'm actually on probably like page 5 of 202 of revising my novel. And that just sounds terrible if I actually think about it. So I really work hard at not thinking about it. Excuse me. So that made me think about how writing is there's so many like really big tasks that can seem really scary. That's not necessarily true of other hobbies, like if you like to like ride your bike, that probably only takes a couple hours on a weekend. Even if you want to like fix your bike up, it's probably only a couple hours. And you can always pay somebody to fix it. But writing has these huge tasks attached to it. Like when I was first writing this novel that I'm now revising, I had to add 10,000 words to it to get it up to kind of a normal novel length at like 250 pages, which it's not 250, obviously, it's 202. So I remember that 10,000 words that I had to add to it. I even broke it up into chunks. I was like, well, if I spend 5 days writing 2,000 words, that'll get me there. And it just sounded so huge because I'd written so much already and I felt like I had said everything. But I did it with the help of some friends and bit by bit. So I'm just going to share with you a kind of way of thinking about big tasks that maybe will give you some inspiration to tackling your own tasks. So maybe this will help you if you're trying to finish a short story, if you're trying to revise something, a manuscript, if you're trying to finish a manuscript, if you have an idea for a novel but you're kind of too afraid to start it because you know that it means signing up for like writing 200 pages, which it doesn't have to, but if you're intimidated by the massive tasks that come along with writing, here is what I do. I think about, first of all, I try really hard not to think about it. I just focus on the time that I'm going to put in for that day, and then I stop doing it. So I revised for my 20 minutes. Actually, it was 25 because I was using a little timer that's 25 minutes. And I revised. I noticed I was on page 8 of 202. That was fine. And I stopped. So that's one good thing. One thing that really helps me is not to think about it. But another thing is to think about kind of the other big tasks that you've done, the other things that you've completed that took a really long time and that you still managed to finish. So one example that comes to mind for me is running. I used to run a lot, and I once or a couple times ran a half marathon. And before I started training for that half marathon, it was like 4 months away, something like that. I couldn't run 5 miles, and at the end of it, I could run 13 miles. So it took a long time. I trained each week. I didn't have great days every single day. I didn't have to train every day, but I had to train consistently, and I did it. So bit by bit, I managed to work up my mileage and complete the race. So you don't have to be a runner or even do something like so intense as run a half marathon to think about the big things that you've done. If you graduated high school, you made it through 13 years of public schooling. That's a pretty big accomplishment. You had to go every day, just about every day, and do all that homework and deal with all those things that people have to deal with in public school. So that's one thing that a lot of people have done. If you had to take the SATs, you probably studied, prepared. Maybe you didn't study enough or prepare enough, but you probably thought about it a lot, and you completed it. You achieved that particular goal. Other things that people do that are not school related or running related, maybe you take care of a parent or a child. That requires you to put in time and effort every single day. Usually those are jobs that you don't get a day off from either. So that's a really amazing thing that people do. Even though it's a huge, huge task that you probably can't even think about how much work it actually really takes. Other things, I've knit a baby blanket. Maybe you've made something, knit or sewed. Those are the things I like to do, but maybe you completed some other kind of project. Maybe you built a shed or put in a fence in your backyard. Maybe you fixed up your backyard. Maybe you added an addition to your house. There's all kinds of things that people complete all the time that are really amazing when you really stop and think about how much time and effort and money it takes to do those things. And it's really amazing. So if you're having trouble or you're feeling like you just can't get started on writing because it's just too much, think about the other big things that you've done and give yourself credit for that, because that's really awesome that people can do the things that we do. And writing is no different. It takes a little bit of effort every day, maybe not every single day. Maybe you don't always have good writing days. Maybe sometimes you have really bad writing days, but in the end, you actually can achieve these big goals a little bit at a time. So that's my pep talk. I hope that it helps you get started or complete your task. One last concrete recommendation I will leave you with is to use a timer. So when I sat down to write for my 25 minutes, I used tomato-timer.com, which is based on the Pomodoro method it's like a productivity method. So the Pomodoro method says you work for 25 minutes, you take a break for 5 minutes, and then you go back and work another 25 minutes if you can. But usually I just work for 25 minutes and then I stop, because that's the amount of time that I have these days when I do have time. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, it can really help break things down into a concrete amount of time. But if you don't have 25 minutes, you can set a timer for 10 minutes or 5 minutes and just write for that amount of time. So thank you for listening to Scratch Paper episode 2. I hope you'll come back and listen to episode 3. I'll let you know how revising is going, and we'll start another writing lesson. My name is Alicia de los Reyes, and you can find the show notes and other information about this podcast at my name, aliciadelosreyes.com. ALICIA, D as in dog, E, L as in llama, OSREYES.com. Thanks again for listening. Hope you have a nice week.